On September 19, 2025, after months of heated debate and political maneuvering, the Senate confirmed Mike Waltz as the final member of President Trump's second-term cabinet, marking the end of a long and often contentious nomination process. Waltz, a former Army Green Beret and congressman, was appointed U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, a role that places him at the center of global diplomacy during a particularly turbulent time for international relations. The vote was razor-thin, 47-45, highlighting deep partisan divides and the high stakes involved in this appointment. The narrow margin reflected not only the polarization in Washington, but also the significance of the position Waltz was stepping into. In a rare display of bipartisanship, 3 Democrats crossed the aisle to support Waltz, citing his military experience and commitment to national security as reasons for their votes. Meanwhile, Rand Paul stood as the lone Republican dissenter, voicing concerns about foreign intervention and underscoring the ideological rifts that persist even within the GOP. Waltz's confirmation ended a 9-month vacancy in this critical diplomatic post, just as world leaders prepared to gather for the UN General Assembly in New York, a moment when American leadership is often under the global spotlight. For months, a respected career diplomat, Dorothy Shea, had filled the role in an acting capacity, working tirelessly to maintain U.S. influence and continuity at the United Nations, despite lacking the full authority of a Senate-confirmed ambassador. But the absence of a permanent ambassador had weakened America's voice, leaving allies and adversaries alike questioning the administration's direction and resolve on key international issues. With Waltz in place, Trump's cabinet was finally complete, bringing together a team that the president hopes will advance his foreign policy agenda and restore American leadership on the world stage. The confirmation closed a contentious process and signaled the administration's readiness to reassert itself globally, as the world watches to see how the U.S. will navigate the challenges ahead. At 51, Mike Waltz brings a rare blend of military, legislative, and executive experience to the UN post. His career is marked by a deep commitment to public service, shaped by years on the front lines and in the halls of power. Waltz is known for his direct approach and his ability to bridge the gap between military strategy and political realities. A retired Green Beret and Army National Guard colonel, Waltz served in Afghanistan and the Middle East, shaping his tough, pragmatic worldview. His combat experience gave him first-hand insight into the complexities of modern warfare and the sacrifices required of American service members. Waltz's leadership in high-stress environments earned him respect among his peers and a reputation for resilience. Elected to Congress in 2018, he focused on national security and countering adversaries like China and Russia. Waltz quickly became a leading voice on defense issues, advocating for a stronger military and smarter foreign policy. He worked across the aisle to address emerging threats and support America's allies, earning a reputation as a results-driven legislator. Waltz also served as a Pentagon advisor and as counterterrorism advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, giving him insight into high-level decision-making. These roles exposed him to the inner workings of national security policy, where he helped shape strategies to keep Americans safe at home and abroad. Most recently, he was Trump's national security advisor, until a high-profile misstep ended his tenure. Despite the controversy, Waltz's expertise and dedication to the country were never in question, and he remained a trusted figure in Republican national security circles. Despite that setback, Trump's trust in Waltz remained strong, leading to his nomination for the UN role. The president valued Waltz's experience and his willingness to take on tough assignments, believing he could represent American interests on the world stage. Waltz's journey from soldier to congressman to top White House advisor has prepared him for the intense pressures of global diplomacy. His unique background allows him to approach international challenges with both a soldier's discipline and a policymaker's strategic vision. Now, he steps onto the world stage, ready to represent American interests with a soldier's resolve and a policymaker's savvy. As he takes on this new challenge, all eyes will be on Waltz to see how his experience and determination shape America's role at the United Nations. Waltz's rise was nearly derailed by Signalgate, a security blunder in May 2025. As National Security Advisor, he accidentally added a journalist to a secure signal chat discussing U.S. military strikes in Yemen. The leak embarrassed the White House, though no classified information was shared. Trump swiftly dismissed Waltz, but Waltz publicly took responsibility, calling it a regrettable mistake. During his UN confirmation hearings, Democrats grilled him on the incident, questioning his fitness for sensitive diplomacy. Waltz insisted he'd learned from the error, and supporters argued his record outweighed a single lapse. Trump's decision to nominate him again showed continued confidence in Waltz's abilities. Signalgate became a cautionary tale, but didn't end Waltz's career. Waltz wasn't Trump's first pick for UN ambassador. Representative Elise Stefanik was. But with the GOP's razor-thin House majority, losing Stefanik's seat risked tipping control to Democrats. A special election in her New York district was too risky for the administration's legislative agenda. The White House withdrew her nomination, prioritizing domestic stability over diplomatic appointments. Waltz, already planning to leave Congress and available after Signalgate, became the pragmatic choice. His nomination avoided triggering another special election and preserved the GOP's fragile majority. The move highlighted the delicate balance between foreign policy ambitions and political realities at home. By choosing Waltz, Trump secured a trusted ally for the UN without jeopardizing his agenda in Congress. It was a strategic pivot that kept both the administration's legislative and diplomatic priorities intact. In his confirmation hearings, Waltz laid out an assertive, reform-driven vision for the United Nations, one that closely echoed Trump's America First approach, but with a renewed sense of urgency. He made it clear that the UN, in his view, needed to be more than just a forum for speeches and symbolic gestures. It had to deliver real results for the American people and for the world. Waltz was blunt in his criticism, describing the UN as bloated, slow-moving, and often paralyzed by bureaucracy. He vowed to push for sweeping reforms, promising to streamline operations and cut through red tape. Waltz insisted that U.S. contributions, both financial and diplomatic, must directly serve American interests, and he pledged to hold the organization accountable for every dollar spent. A key part of Waltz's plan is to challenge the growing influence of China and Russia, especially on powerful committees like the Human Rights Council. He argued that these nations often undermine democratic values and use their positions to shield themselves from criticism. Waltz promised to rally U.S. allies and build coalitions to counteract their sway, ensuring that the UN remains a platform for freedom and human rights. He also promised to confront what he called a persistent anti-Israel bias and the alarming rise of anti-Semitism within UN agencies. Waltz said he would not tolerate double standards or discrimination, and would work to ensure that all member states are treated fairly and equally. Waltz called for a comprehensive review of U.S. funding to the UN, suggesting that future contributions be tied to measurable performance and meaningful reform. He argued that American taxpayers deserve transparency and results, not empty promises or wasted resources. Rather than advocating for withdrawal or isolation, Waltz championed a strategy of forceful engagement, using America's considerable leverage to drive change from within. He believes that by staying at the table and speaking with a strong voice, the U.S. can shape the UN's future and protect its own interests. His ultimate goal is a United Nations that is more efficient, transparent, and accountable, an institution that upholds the principles of national sovereignty and global security, rather than undermining them. Waltz's background as both a soldier and a policymaker suggests his tenure will be marked by a willingness to confront tough issues head-on and a relentless push for reform. He brings a unique blend of military discipline and legislative experience to the role, which he says will help him navigate the complex world of international diplomacy. Waltz aims to make the UN more responsive to 21st-century challenges, from emerging technologies to climate change, while ensuring that American interests are always front and center. He envisions a UN that is not only more effective, but also more relevant to the needs of today's rapidly changing world. For Waltz, the United Nations is not just a stage for America's adversaries, but a battleground where American values, leadership, and vision can shape the future of global cooperation. Waltz steps into his UN role amid global turmoil. Two major wars dominate the agenda. In Gaza, a new Israeli ground offensive has triggered a humanitarian crisis and risks wider conflict. The war in Ukraine grinds on, with the UN hamstrung by Russia's Security Council veto. Waltz must navigate these crises, defend U.S. policy, and build coalitions in a fractured international community. Tensions with China, Iran's assertiveness, and North Korea's nuclear ambitions add to the complexity. The UN remains the main venue for global diplomacy, and Waltz's effectiveness will shape America's influence. His confirmation comes at a moment when strong U.S. leadership is urgently needed. The U.S. ambassador to the UN is both diplomat and national spokesperson, America's face to the world. The role offers a powerful platform to shape global opinion and rally support for U.S. initiatives. For Trump, a loyal, assertive ambassador like Waltz is key to advancing an America-first agenda. But the job is fraught with challenges: building consensus among nearly 200 nations, navigating rivalries, and working within the UN's structural limits. The Security Council's veto power can block even the best-laid U.S. plans. The ambassador must balance principle with pragmatism, projecting strength while forging coalitions. It's a high-wire act, one that tests both diplomatic skill and political resolve. Waltz's first test comes immediately. He arrives just before the UN General Assembly, facing a whirlwind of diplomacy. He must quickly build relationships, master UN protocols, and represent U.S. interests in high-stakes meetings. Many member states are wary of Trump's America First agenda, so Waltz must reassure allies while pushing for reform. A procedural wrinkle, his separate nomination as U.S. representative to the General Assembly wasn't voted on, could complicate his authority. Navigating this, while managing global crises, will test his political acumen from day one. Waltz's challenge turn reformist rhetoric into real results within a resistant institution. Success will require more than tough talk. It demands strategic patience and coalition building. The diplomatic gauntlet ahead will determine if Waltz becomes a consequential ambassador. Waltz's confirmation marks a turning point for Trump's foreign policy, an assertive America First approach at the UN. With the cabinet complete, Trump has a trusted voice at the world's diplomatic crossroads. Waltz's direct line to the White House and reputation for plain speaking will shake up UN proceedings. He faces immediate challenges: defending U.S. policy on Gaza and Ukraine, and advancing UN reform. The world will watch to see if his approach brings greater influence or isolation for America. Waltz embodies Trump's vision, skeptical of globalism, determined to bend institutions to U.S. interests. As he takes his seat, the next chapter of American diplomacy begins, on Waltz's terms.